Hi everybody, Dhaman Mehta here, and thank you for once again joining me as I go through my favorites list on fanfiction.net. For those of you that don't know, I have been reading fanfiction for over 16 years, and I decided to go back over the favorites list on the first fanfiction site that I started reading on and reread all the stories to see if my tastes have changed and if they still deserve to stay on my favorites list. So let's dive into these stories, starting with The Life of Naruto Zombies by Everyone's Watching You. This is a Naruto crossover with Plants vs. Zombies where Naruto gets a new house and gets a manual that gives him a bloodline to, summon solar chakra, and basically make the plants from Plants vs. Zombies the game. And the zombies are the zombies of the game as well, so they're like slow, stupid, and comical. Um, and also Crazy Dave is there to give him hints and help him out. I am a. If you've seen any of the other videos, you know that I like the lol so random kind of style of humor. And this story seemed to hit all the right notes because it does that. It jumps from one dumb gag to the next, and yet I just never found myself really enjoying it or like laughing really hard while I read this. Like there was there's minor misspellings and stuff that like I mainly noticed and became an issue because I wasn't getting really invested in it. It mainly is like this is a comedy that also one does not get very far. It doesn't really, so there's not a lot here. Um, and what is here basically just made me smile a bit and like chuckle in my head, but nothing that really made me laugh or fully get like super enjoying this. So uh, I think I just found this to be pretty meh and don't think it's really something anybody needs to look out at, and it's going to fall off my list. Number two is A Building of Bridges by Unique. And this is an alternate version of how John and Sherlock from the Sherlock BBC series could have met. This takes a thing where they meet basically over in like a police, crime scene kind of thing. And it highlights their camaraderie and easily builds their relationship in a way that you expect from from the BBC Sherlock, while still giving John a lot of character, while that he lacks a voice, because in this story he doesn't actually talk like at all. So that's actually I think this author did a really good job fleshing out these characters and making them feel like they fit in that universe that they came from. I think any fan of that show will enjoy this a lot. I certainly did, and it's going to stay on my list. Next is Zero for Zero by willyolioleo. And this is a Familiar of Zero Borderlands crossover where Louise summons Zero from Borderlands 2 as her familiar, and he immediately nopes out of there and starts doing other shit, like looking for bounties and doing stuff on his own. Um, there's not really much to say about this because this is another one where like nothing really happens. Not nothing happens. It doesn't get very far. It definitely, I mean, because it's interesting how it just swerves off of canon basically immediately, and it's a nice setup, but again, it doesn't get very far and doesn't really do much outside of that setup, and it's not really that funny or humorous, like joke wise. So it's just uninteresting in the state that it was left in, and it's gonna fall off my list. Next is a long one, and one of the reasons why this video took like a month as to go out from the last one as opposed to the others, which is The Fated Turnabout by People Persons of Doom. And this is a self-insert fic where the self-insert is a fan of the Ace Attorney series and gets asked, like, just starts thinking about, like, oh, I wish Phoenix never lost his badge at the end of one of the games. And it's like, really? Why don't you go into the and then like Maya or yeah Maya or Mia, I don't remember which one, but like the one that the Fae that's dead like comes in like, okay, then go get into that universe and go save his badge. um, so the story is really engaging, and I think my vote counts really interestingly for this because I've never played any of the Ace Attorney games, so I don't know the plot of any of them. I don't know the story. I only know the characters really from memes and like seeing him in Marvel vs. Capcom 3. I didn't really understand any of the characters or the backgrounds or any of that, and yet I was still super engaged, wholly interested, and found myself loving every minute of this story. Um, and I had no problems keeping up. Like there were like basically this story is set up into essentially what I assume like how the games are, where it's like cases, and it just time skips in between because like the cases are not literally one after the other. There is time, so it just jumps from case to case, and then this story does the same thing where it's like case to case, and then little right at the start of each arc will be a little bit going over what offhandedly mentioning things that might have happened in between. Uh, I found that to be really good, and it helped that it wasn't confusing. Like, because there's a lot of jumps, especially after the first few chapters, where the author starts putting in other POVs. But they always put timestamps and often the name of the new POV whenever they do that, and they have to put timestamps just whenever they're changing scene at all. So it becomes really easy to follow because of that. Um, but and like I said, it sometimes if you don't notice the POV change, it could get a little distracting. But it's still that's the minor nitpick. I love this story a lot, and she finally actually just finished it a couple like I want to say a couple weeks ago. So this just complete, and they're pushing for, and she's going to be making a sequel. So that is, oh wait, no, she finished in April, so it's been a while. But yeah, she just finished. The story just finished. There's a sequel coming, and the ending of this story truly surprised me. The whole ending arc was really interesting, and I thoroughly enjoyed this story and highly recommend it. If you like the Ace Attorney games at all, I think you will get a hell of a kick out of this story, and it's going to stay on my list. Moving on, we go to Fool in Eastern Wonderland by Yakukawa. And this is a post Persona 3 Persona 3 and 4 crossover with the Toho franchise, where after the events of 3, Yukari Yakumo from Toho comes in and grabs Minato from the seal and places him in Genzokyo. So the majority of this story is like slice of life stuff with Minato just hanging out with the girls in Gensokyo and basically using his Casanovaing his way into all their hearts, but also learning how to do the spell duels and stuff in that place, and just connecting with all the characters. That's like 75% of this story, and then the last quarter is where they started moving the into a harder plot line with Persona 4 and him inserting himself into the Persona 4 story, which also brought some of the Gensokyo, was going to bring some of the Gensokyo characters there. I really enjoyed it, especially because like the Persona 4 stuff was going to show off like them connecting more with also like, because it's the same universe as the Persona 3 stuff, which is canon. Like those games do in canon happen in the same world. So we were actually also starting to see like some of the characters like Aegis meet up with Minato again after all this time. And while the fact that ends abruptly, and this author has not updated this story in over a year because of that, so it's kind of hard. But like, granted, we're still talking about a story that was from 2013 and was last updated just last year, so it could still come back because it was 8 years that they've been working on this. Theoretically, could still come back, but even though the main plot ends without ever really completing or even meeting all of the people from Persona 3, if this was just the Gensokyo stuff, like the first time, if it didn't have any of the Persona 4 stuff at all, I would still love this. I really enjoy all the interactions, and Tales of Gensokyo is definitely more than enough to entertain. The Persona 4 interactions and all that stuff, that's a bonus that I still found really interesting. Especially, and it helps that like at least ended with one big meaningful connection happening before it stops. So there is some satisfaction happening there, but overall, I just found this to be really engaging and a lot for you to chew on. It's gonna stay on my list. Come into another Persona 3 fic. This one called Razon Dietre by Nowhere Fast, and this is a time travel fic where again Minato, after the events of Persona 3, basically like loses his resolve and then therefore ends up back in time, now in a slightly different universe where it's not really his role. It's Femc's turn, but he's there as well, and he doesn't have the full power of the Fool. And the story works until the author basically just decided to stop writing. Um, they did leave an outline of how the rest of the story would go, and that outline has a lot of interesting plot points, but reading the outline doesn't give you the satisfaction of actually seeing how that would have gone. And the fact is that like the main actual gist of the story only gets about 15 or 20% of the way through, and that just leaves you wanting, especially with when you see like what could have been. If you just want to read some early game Persona 3 scenes with the time travel like sneaky protagonist, this is fine. I don't think it's terrible. I just really don't think it'll satisfy, and the fact that it just drops will leave people frustrated. But I do think if you just want to see some early bits with the like early bits of Persona with a little bit of time travel put in, you'll be fine with this. But for me, it's gonna fall off my list. And last story for this video is a not-so story, The Fourth Champion by Captain Compass. And this is a crack story where Harry nominates Tom Riddle as his replacement champion for the Triwizard Tournament. I can see, like, from a conceptual level, I can see how this is funny. It's like, oh, the big bad is just being here, and it's like, in order to not be a baby or anything for the tournament, he turns into, like, a midget, like, thing that's, like, stupid, and everything's, like, slightly dumb. But it just becomes, it's kind of boring, and this is a similar problem with, like, the first story that I talked about, Life of Naruto Zombies, where it's meant to be a humorous fic. I get conceptually how the jokes are supposed to land and how it should work, but I never really laughed at anything. Like this one, I don't even think I smiled as much or thing. Like in Naruto Zombies, I still at least remember some jokes and some moments where I'm like, yeah, that was kind of cute or fun, and like funny in the yeah. But this, like, not really that great. I don't think it's terrible, but like, I mean, it's a comedy fic that didn't make me laugh. Like, I don't know what else to say about this, and I feel like if you want to find a comedy fic, even if you want to find a specifically Harry Potter fic, hell, if you want a Harry Potter Triwizard Tournament comedy fic, I've had better ones on my list that are more worth your time. This is not a good one, and it's gonna fall off my list. So there we have it. Another video down. Fan fiction status time. Look at the numbers. We've now read 893 stories from my favorites list, and 419 of them have been kept on my list. So still batting at around like 45%. So not too bad, but yeah, like it's been a lot of stuff I've been cutting and a lot of stuff I've been reading. And also for those of you that are interested or just want to know, like I have still been reading fan fiction. Granted, not always on fanfiction.net, but I have been, because I've been doing this, I haven't really been adding stuff to my favorites list. That's not to say that there isn't some stuff that I have been interested in, but like the fact is I've favorited those authors. A lot of the times the stories, because mainly I've moved away from fanfiction.net for my most of my reading, so I'm not really updating my list anymore. But I do, for those of you interested, still have my profile, which I'll link to in the description, as well as links to all these stories, so you can give them a look for yourself if you think my taste is shit, or if you think I'm not giving these stories a chance. Feel free to give them a look for yourself. And my profile, you can also connect to the if you go through the profile in fanfiction.net, you can see the community where I have collected all of the stories I've ever read on fanfiction.net that I felt were any way engaging or interested in. This is just what this favorites list was just supposed to be the best of the best, and even that, like, this is basically so like basically this favorites list is only like 10% of all the stuff I've read on that site. Like, yeah, I have over 12,000 fics in my C2. But if you want to read that, check that out. Leave a like if you like this video or anything. If you want to check out next time, I update these because I try. Well, I said it's been a long time since I did weekly videos. That was like the first year I was doing this. So it's really, if you want to get updated, getting subscribing is probably the best way to get updated, because otherwise I just post these sporadically. But thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.